now stay with me on this one. What if relentless growth didn't mean burnout, chaos, or blind ambition, but rather disciplined systems, next level leadership, and a mindset that turns every frustration into fuel? Chef Franck Desplechin has lived that journey from Michelin level kitchens to global hotel consulting, and today he's sharing the playbook that helps restaurateurs scale smarter. Welcome back to the Restaurant Incubator. My name is Brandon Sharp. I'm the host. As an executive chef, I earned 7 Michelin stars, and now as a chef owner, I have 3 restaurants here in Chapel Hill, North Carolina. So when Chef Franck Desplechin tells his story, it doesn't read like a fairy tale. It reads like a roadmap out of the trenches. Born in Brittany, trained in Michelin-rated kitchens, Franck spent decades juggling extremes of culinary artistry and operational intensity, embedding resilient systems and teaching teams to turn adversity into advantage. He's made growth a habit and not a gamble in his book, Relentless Growth. He's worked in island resorts, Forbes 5-star hotels, major F&B leadership roles, and now leading a hospitality consulting firm that helps restaurants, hotels, and resorts go from surviving to thriving. If you're launching a restaurant or dreaming of taking your concept to the next level, this is the episode for you. Franck is going to walk us through how to stop treating growth like a shot in the dark and start treating it like a lever you can pull with precision. We're talking practical leadership habits, smarter staffing decisions, realistic scaling signals, and how to cultivate a team and mindset that can carry the business long after you've walked away from the stove. Welcome back to the Restaurant Incubator. Today we've got Chef Franck Desplechin with us. Chef, please tell us a little bit about yourself. Welcome to the show.
Hey, how are you, Brandon? Thanks for having me. It's a real pleasure to be part of this conversation. I'm Franck Desplechin. I'm chef, author, girl's dad. I am entrepreneur and yeah, just working my way into the world of hospitality.
Well, I started the Restaurant Incubator because I thought that I'm 50 years old, and I was thinking my colleagues and I, we came up in a certain system, and we came up looking up to certain chefs and restaurant owners, who are now the grandfathers, and soon, chefs of my generation will be the grandfathers. And I think some of us were bemoaning, things that will be lost, whether it's memories of certain chefs or certain restaurants or recipes or techniques or systems. And so that's really why I created the Restaurant Incubator, to preserve these things and pass them down to the next generation so they don't have make the same mistakes that I did. And so first of all, congratulations on your book, Relentless Growth. And so what is it? So that's kind of my motivation for doing this. What was your motivation for writing Relentless Growth? What need did you see in the industry for this information?
Yeah, I mean, I think I don't think there's a new problem. I think we've always, for as long as I remember, we've been having staff shortage. We've been having a lack of quality as time went on from the level of preparation and knowledge that leaders of today are. But even 10 years ago, I remember having similar problem. 20 years ago, I remember being part of that problem. So I don't think it is a new problem, but I guess I felt that a huge an amount of readiness, just like I knew I was able to articulate over time and throughout my career, I was able to feel like my way of thinking, my philosophy of leadership was resonating to a point that when I was moving on to a next job, I had people calling me and say, Franck, hey, if you have an opportunity, I would love to come back work for you. And so you're just kind of realizing that 1 person, 2 person, 3 person, that you actually are creating a following without really necessarily putting so much thought into it. You just kind of people gravitating around what you believe is right. And I guess they're the one who made me realize I could not see it myself, but they made me realize that I had something to say, and maybe that if I was on a bigger platform, when someone could access my information and my way of thinking, then maybe it could actually help the next generation of student of hospitality. I just decided to I say I had plenty ideas in my head. Which one is good one? Which one is good enough to write an entire book about it? And so since I didn't really know and it was all fuzzy, I just hired a book coach to help me dissecting and putting apart all the great ideas. And then that's how the idea was born, just to give it a try. And that ended up, I mean, I thought writing a book would take me 6 months, and then here I am. But here I am 2 years later, and it's about to come out. So I fell in love with the process of writing it. I fell in love with the international intentionality of writing it, and what I was trying to get out of this. The the interest became curiosity, and the curiosity became a passion project, and the passion project became a commitment. And so everything has evolved for me to become like, this is really what I want to do and what I have to do. And so I put as much efforts and energy, time, and money into writing it that I put into the cover, that I put into the design, the interior design, that I put into each pages, to figure it out, what is it that I wanted to say.
Well, that spurs me into thinking about how you learned what you knew. So for me, I worked for several well-known chefs around the United States because I wanted to learn to cook the way that they cooked and think about food the way that they thought about food. And this was in my 20s. And so I had no thought about leadership or management or the way that they ran kitchens or the way that they handled their team. And so I learned to cook from those people, but I also learned, I would say, actually how not to manage rather than how to manage. I think several of them were terrible leaders and terrible managers. Do you think did you have mentors that showed you the right way to lead, or did you figure this out on your own because you saw bad management and bad leadership happening in kitchens?
I can totally relate to you, and I think there's a good combination of both. But I'd like to say that I probably learned a lot more what not to do,
Mhm.
than what to do. And I think, you're getting some chefs that are, I've got similar journey as you are. We work for some very renowned chef back in France, and you just kind of, there's a part of me that was observing how they were doing because I aspired to be one of them. And so but I also remember also vividly how I felt about the way I was treated. And then I'm just like, and it's like, I'm sure there has to be a way to get the same result without making me feel like shit. Um,
Yes,
you know what
exactly.
I mean? That I'm
Yeah.
sure there is. And I guess that became what I was chasing is just, I remember I felt therefore when someone was, and don't get me wrong, I had my moments when one of my prep cook was not necessarily following my command or my orders, and I'm just losing my shit on it. Like it happens, and but at the same time, what made me realize the kind of leader I wanted to be is, I remember my chef would give me shit and then he move on. And then it's never talked about again. And then you kind of left with your own emotion having to deal with. And
Mhm.
what I've decided to do a little bit differently is like, man, I actually made this prep cook feel like shit. Maybe he doesn't want to come to work tomorrow. And it's like, but I need him tomorrow. So before he leaves today, and they say, hey, Brian, can we just have a chat before you leave today? I would love, come find me in my office before you leave today. And then you have this conversation and you start by apologizing. You say, hey, this I apologize for my behavior. I shouldn't have lost my cool on you. I say, but here is what I was expecting. This is where you fell short. Can we come to an agreement, and moving forward, I shouldn't have to repeat myself for this. And so you kind of realizing that the set of expectations sets you apart. And then you're learning that people are respectful of a chef that's coming to apologize to a prep cook, because it probably never happened or it's very rarely happening to them. So you
Mhm.
just kind of realizing that you treat people a little bit differently, you treat them well. They're here to learn, and you have to let them go through their own process. And you're here to guide them more than you're here to push them.
Well, and that's a fantastic explanation. You saw me clapping and smiling. Like I love hearing you say that because I think exactly the same thing. I'm still terrified of some of those men, even though I haven't worked for them for 15 or 20 years. But I'm dying to go and ask them, and I'm way too afraid to ask them. Do you think you would have been as successful as you are, chef? If, and I'm not talking about you, I'm talking about them. Do you think
Yeah.
that you would have been as successful as you are if you had treated people better? Because I had the exact same sensation when I was being humiliated. I was like, I will give you all of my energy. I will give you all of I will like everything, all my effort, everything, but you will never get 100% of my heart. And I'm not going to stay here forever because of the way that you're treating me. I wonder if they would ever acknowledge that they could do as well and be as successful if they had treated people better?
I do think they would have. Now, after, do they think that? The same way I came to the ranks is like until I realized that when I became my own chef and I found myself utilizing some similar method and then I was not getting a result. There's also the fact that I was also managing a different generation of people.
Uh-huh.
And so I like to think, I mean, I go see some of my former chefs from like 20 something years ago. And so when I go to them, I am being vulnerable with them. I am talking to them about, and then
Hmm.
you realize that there's conversation they just never had. They
Yeah.
don't have that level of realness and honesty into the fact that I still respect you. I still call you chef 20 years later, but man, it's like, why did you treat me that way? And when you confront them with that, they just look at you with a stare blank, and they're just like, I don't even know how to answer that question because they actually never faced those questions and they never realized the damage that they've done. But
Yeah.
also, there's the fact that would I have been as successful in my career if I did not got pushed that way? I don't know. It's hard for me to know, but I like to think that while I was not receiving some level of knowledge or some level of compassion or empathy, I also got my discipline and my work ethics because of it. And
Yeah.
and so I guess the only thing I could control is what kind of leader do I want to be
Mhm.
based on my journey and getting what I receive. So it kind of forged me to become a different person, but I also was able to compartmentalize what to do, with what not to do. So that was actually what helped me.
Well, I don't want to mischaracterize what you said earlier, but I think that you said relentless growth addresses some of the same problems that you face now and that you saw 20 years ago and have always been present in the industry. And it's this industry is one of bottom up growth, right? You start as a commis, you work your way up, then you become the chef. And so, is relentless growth aimed at sort of fixing it from the top down, from leadership down, or is it aimed at fixing it from, or addressing, not fixing the problem, from sort of the line cook and prep cook level up? Who is the book written for?
The book is really written to, I would say, the student of hospitality. So the book is entirely, and I am planning on writing more than that book. But
Hmm.
I think the first step of this journey is it's you against you versus you with you. So this entire book is written for someone to ask themselves the right questions, to realize how to not only survive but thrive in the one of the world's most demanding industry. And so when you read the book, the audience is a student of hospitality, someone that just entered CIA that wants to know what is it that I'm expecting out of this career. It's also written back in mind with the employee that's been an employee for 8 years and suddenly is an overachiever, is an individual performer, and we're giving him an opportunity to become a manager now when he has to manage. And I think it's probably the biggest gap yet when
Hmm.
there is a huge lack of training, mentoring, and coaching from an employee becoming a manager. You just like suddenly it's not because you've been here long enough or that you are actually a good performer individually that suddenly you're a great manager or you're a great leader. And I think we're a tendency of just promoting in order to it's kind of almost self-serving is I'm going to promote you, I'm going to put you here so you can cover the shift and I can go on with my life. And so that person is just on its own expected at that point. I'm giving you a title, I'm giving you money and compensation, now I'm expecting you to perform. And he's like, well, I don't know what the hell I'm doing. I said, well, you need to figure it out, you're a manager now. And so there's a lot of that, and I think this book is really to help people. It's really to help filling that gap. Is you realize that if you are waiting for your leader or your direct supervisor to teach you and you're not receiving it, then do the work within yourself. And I'm hopeful that this book will actually help you as a blueprint to do the work within yourself so you don't necessarily receive that mentorship. So I really aspire to providing through this book the coaching and mentorship that people deserve in order to continue their own journey.
So what you're speaking of is a problem that I've been trying to address in my own career for years, and it starts with the understanding, as I think of it, as the best commis becomes chef de partie, the best chef de partie becomes sous chef, the best sous chef becomes chef de cuisine, and as that person moves up the ladder, cooking becomes less and less of the job, and so it doesn't matter how good of a manager are, but they're getting promoted up to the manager level, and so bridging that gap is such a, is such a huge thing to address. And so when you are consulting, or when you are writing this book and picturing that person, what is the first 30 days for someone who has gone from from a line level position to a manager position look like? What are, if we're going to get tactical, what are the systems or the knowledge that they need during those first 30 days so they don't crash and burn and piss off everybody that used to work beside them?
Yeah, of course. I think the work almost start before you're getting that promotion. I think the work really start from you understanding, is it the right time for you to take that promotion? Are you ready to take that promotion? It's not because someone comes and say, here's the title of a chef de cuisine and here's an extra $30,000 a year. It's like you should be able to get to a place with a level of emotional intelligence and awareness when you're just kind of looking at it, it's like, you know what? I don't think I'm ready for it. I still need to work on this. And say, would you mind to help me maybe in 90 days working with me and putting a plan together so I can be the best asset you want me to be? And so after, if the manager in front of you, they can only respect that decision. I don't think they can just say, are you kidding or what? No, you're taking it now. Like I don't think those conversations would happen, but I think it really starts from you being able to understand where you stand and where you are with your own performance, with your own level of readiness, with your own awareness. Is like, do I need to learn empathy? Do I know how to provide feedback? Do I know how to receive feedback? And so do I know how to put back a kitchen together when in the middle of chaos without feeling the need to jump on the line and starting cutting carrots and tomatoes? Like, how do you actually putting everything back on track without using a knife, which is all you've been trained to do? So
Mhm.
I think it really start before those days. But to answer your question, those first 30 days, it's a lot of introspection, and
Mhm.
it's not because you're being given a promotion that suddenly you know what to do. You still
Mhm.
have to walk the talk, and you still have to walk with a level of observation, because you're not necessarily knowing all the answers and coming across too strong towards everybody and say you're not doing it right, you're not doing it right. You're not necessarily helping the culture of the place. You're actually starting to damage slowly that place. So you just got to pay attention. It's not because we gave you a promotion that we need result next week. You're going into your own journey, and again, it's all about what kind of leader you want to be, and learning how to come across, learning how to talk to people, learning how to give feedback, learning how to show empathy for someone that right now is like, hey, sorry, I was late today. I say, well, you were late yesterday. And instead of just saying, I say, this is bad, you were late 2 days in a row, it's like, hey, what's going on, dude? Like, can we have a sit down and let's what's going on? Like, I want to understand how we can help you. So having those things comes within you and knowing that you were ready for it rather than just taking it because of the carrot in front of you with the title and the compensation. The entitlement is a huge, I think, generational problem. There's a need of feeling like success is attainable as soon as possible. Like, I want to attain the executive chef by my 23rd birthday so I can do my Instagram post. Those things is just something that we need to change the narrative, and we need to help changing the narrative.
Excellent, excellent. Well, so while we're talking about systems, you stress the importance of systems versus improvisation. So when it comes to opening a new restaurant, where should the chef start in his leadership role in the kitchen? Where do you want where would you advise somebody to start with the systems in a new kitchen?
Yeah, I mean, I would definitely. I think the human capital is the biggest asset of any restaurant, hotels, anything. And I think finding the right partners on this, finding the right team, in order to help you achieve this, I think that's the first step. Any new job that I've taken, I'm someone that is getting attracted with a lot of underperforming property or problematic property. Like, I'm a little psycho. If the more messed up the property is, the more attracted I am to it. And it's just because because I like to think I'm a fixer. I'm just someone that loves to fix problem and restore things. So I think finding the right people is observing what you have because nothing is broken. It's functioning, but now
Mhm.
figure it out is like, okay, I realize that out of this team, I don't necessarily receive what I need from this team. So you're starting implementing rules and making the expectation a bit more black and white and leaving a little bit less to predictability and having people moving into a direction that is common altogether. And then you're starting to hire the right people. And if you're
Mhm.
lucky, you also call the people that used to help you in the past and say, dude, I need some help here. Can you help me out to do this? Don't be afraid to ask for help to get to where you need to be. And by having surrounding yourself by the right people, after that is just implementing processes. And hospitality, at the end of the day, it's not complicated. You need to know how to serve a guest. You know how to cook food. If you happen to be a decent cook and you happen to know how to, you know where your fork and your knife goes and your plate and your water, then after that you can just add your little touch. But those processes always comes from a genuine sense of hospitality. Do you actually care about serving another person?
Mhm.
And do you care about the craft that comes with it? And if you surround yourself that like with like-minded people, it becomes much easier. So I anywhere I worked and anywhere that I started projects, the key for me was to start with who I'm surrounding myself with. That was the very first key.
Got it. Got it. Well, I've had, more than one time I've looked at the financial statements at the bottom line at the end of a month or at the end of a busy quarter where top line revenue exceeded expectations, but the bottom line is not where it should be. And you mentioned waste as a silent profit killer. So what are some of the most overlooked ways that restaurants lose money, especially small operators that might not be obvious, that might not be apparent, that a first time operator may not be aware of?
I think there's in restaurant that I worked out because I come from both. I've done restaurant, I've done hotels. I got conditioned in hotels when everyone is looking at the numbers. You almost manage by the numbers almost more. And when I
Mhm.
went to open restaurant project, I realized that they barely looked at a P&L. They don't even know half of the time what a GL is. And so they're just kind of looking at, they don't look at any of this. So I just say, okay, well, let's do at least a menu engineering. Like just look at our POS reports. Let's do a costing of our recipe and look at that. And let's figure that part out and find out which one has your stars and which one has your dogs. And so when you kind of just knowing that small little principle, it does not require any degree to know what a menu engineering is, but I think it gives you a good idea of kind of where you already have established your pricing, where you've established your costing, and kind of what sells for the demographic that you're serving. Once you've done that, you can technically have a story to know where to tackle. Now, when you have big operation or you're opening a new restaurant and you don't necessarily have those data, it's being able to find out what quality. I can buy bacon for breakfast at $3.99 a pound, or I can buy it at $12.99 a pound. So he's really figured it out. Everyone wants the best quality, therefore they all think pricing is what's going to determine the quality. And sometimes it's very wrong. You can find very, very good product without needing to break the bank.
Mhm.
So having a representative from company that are coming and say, okay, I need to try that, taste that bacon anywhere between this price and this price. My breakfast will be an average of $17 per person. Therefore, I cannot afford a $12.99 a pound bacon. I need to start looking in the mid-range. Now I'm going to find the best mid-range there ever is. So can I
Mhm.
have that one at $6.99, $7.99, and $8.99 to see where the one is the best? And give me three brands of those three bacons so I can try. And then based on that, you got to take the time to do your due diligence in order to build something that you're proud of. And at the same time, it will allow you to pay attention to that kind of waste. Because everyone would think waste is just, I just cut a carrot and then I just throw the fan in the trash when I could have used the fan to make a stock. So there's that waste, which you have to be a great culinarian in order to recycle and reuse things that you see in the kitchen. But I think the first waste, as you're looking at, is really do you have the right product? Do you charge the right price? Did you bring the right quality in your thing? And building that rapport with those representative of those companies.
It's amazing, isn't it? How much how much bacon hotel guests eat at a buffet. It blows my mind. Uh,
It's crazy, Brandon. When I arrived at the Saint, not when I arrived, when I was at Saint Regis Princeville, at some point I became exec chef, and we had a food cost problem. And what I've learned, because I didn't know at the time as much, but when I went to talk to my purchasing director, he told me, I said, Franck, I'm going to pull you a report of everything we purchased from the company we were using at the time, which was the major provider. And so what she taught me, which I kept the lesson ever since, is we literally pull the top five things that we're purchasing from a price point of view for the property. And obviously, number one was bacon. Number two was French fries. And then you just kind of looking at this and you say, okay. And so I said, wow, we have spent close to about like $450,000 of bacon for the year. And you're just like, okay, now I have a problem of my food costs. And it's like, can you reach out to the vendor? And if we tone down the bacon by maybe 75 cents to a dollar on this quantity we're buying, if you tackle it that way, you will be able to actually able to save point and a half for the entire year on your food cost by just doing that move. That does not require you to do anything else. Looking at, man, why are we wasting so much food? And then you starting losing your shit because you just throw this and you just throw that, which are so minimal. But if you're looking at the big picture, that director of purchasing taught me a lesson that I kept my entire career.
that's fantastic. Well, when it comes to small operators, maybe you're asked to consult for a restaurant that is doing well and they don't know why, that is doing poorly and they can't figure out why. What are the what are three or four key performance indicators that you tell them they have to look at first when it comes to their finances?
I think the number one aspect, and probably especially in a restaurant business, you probably your biggest expense will be your labor. Your
Mm,
labor is always end up being your biggest expense. And so you're looking at, are you overstaffed? Are you understaffed? Do you have the right staff? I've walked into a restaurant when they were overstaffed. It was apparent. You just say, man, why do you have six cooks? You're gonna do 80 covers. I don't think you need six cooks. And he say, well, yeah, I need six cooks. I say, okay, let's assume you need six cooks on the line. Perfect. Now I'm going to spend the whole service observing. And then you realize that they're all the same. There's not one pushing, there's not one better. They're all about the same. And I say, dude, you paying all these guys about $22 an hour. What if I tell you that you can replace two guys at $22 an hour and I'm finding you an amazing one at $29 an hour? And then you just start to kind of teaching them a way to look at. And so once you're sticking those approach and you say, okay, well, they all line cooks. And they say, well, maybe you need to start creating also a tier. You must have line cook, you must have station cook, you must have lead cook, and you're creating those layer of success. So for example, your line cook, they're just going to be line cook at $22 an hour with no actual opportunity to go up because there's nothing to go up. The next step is to be chef de cuisine. So, but if you're creating a station cook and then a lead cook, you're actually giving them an opportunity to push themselves a little bit more because they want the next promotion and they want the cash. They want to make $25 an hour. They want to go up to 28. So you start in creating these tiers of success and promotion for them. And you're just creating now opportunities for whoever. Have a station cook that decide to move on with his life, that open position, and you just go to all your prep, you line crew, and you say, hey, there's an opportunity for any of you guys. You can apply whenever you want. And then you're creating these things. So I think the labor will be usually the first step that I'm looking at from an expense perspective. And then after, food costs will be the second. And then the third will be other expenses, chemical product. Usually chemical is something I found a lot of surprises. You just realize that we never want to run out, even though we have 6 deliveries a week. We never want to run out, but we're sitting on enough inventory to shut down another pandemic for the next 2 years. So it's just those kind of thing.
yeah.
That the first three step. It would be labor, food cost, and then chemicals are the three things that has been something I look at when I'm walking into a kitchen.
Okay. Got it. Well, I think about, so if we go back to those, cooks that want to become chefs one day, before they even enter a restaurant, okay, so there's a restaurant that they love or that they have admired from afar. They love the food there. It has a Michelin star. They want to go and cook there. They want to learn from that chef. And there's information out there. They can look at the chef's Instagram or read the chef's interviews or listen to the chef's podcasts, and get an inkling of what that person, at least, in a public persona, is like. But you place great emphasis on mentorship, and so I want to ask, in the interview process, I when I ask a candidate, what questions do you have for me, I get the same ones, like, what will my schedule be, how much will I get paid? But there's an opportunity there for the cook who is serious about becoming a chef or a leader one day to ask some questions of that employer to extract whether or not that person might be a great mentor for them. In that process, if you were the candidate and you wanted to figure out if the chef across the table from you was going to be a great mentor for you potentially, what sort of questions would you ask that person?
Um, I think um, I think it comes down to what is it that you want to extract from your next experience. There's been experiences when you go and all you're looking for, you don't necessarily look for right then yet the mentorship that you're seeking out. I think sometimes you just say, you know what, I'm going to go to this job because I need knife skills. Like my knife skills are just poor and I need knife skills. Therefore, where can I learn the best knife skills? And then you're just kind of doing there. Now, you can look into it. You're going to find all those things into what you're looking for. And then at least you got to understand why you're here and doing this because it's going to be hard. You're going to be pushed. You're going to be working crazy amount of hours. You're going to be exhausted. You're going to be facing probably the edge of a burnout. And if you don't really know why you're here and you're only here for the paycheck, it's not enough for you to want to show up the next day after you had a hard day. It's just not enough. But if you're there for good reason, if I need mentorship, then I'm going to the interview and the question you want to ask the guy in front of you is like, hey, I'm seeking right now coaching and mentorship. I'm at the time of my career when I want to continue to grow in my leadership role. And I think that I receiving mentoring and coaching from understanding what a good leader is what I'm seeking out. So you ask that chef and you say, what are the top three things that I can learn from you from a leadership perspective? And then
Great.
you're
Yeah.
gonna have the chefs gonna like, oh my goodness, I've never received a question like this. Like, and
Yep.
I promise you, so many chefs never just been received those questions.
Uh-huh.
And so I you get those questions, but just make sure you've done your due diligence. What is it that you're seeking out of this experience rather than the prestige and then the stamp on your resume? Because again, those things are just not enough anymore. You want to be able to find a chef or a mentor that's going to help you navigating your journey because he cares about your journey. If you come in, I mean, I've seen some chefs that I work for that, that there's a misconception is sometimes the chefs makes you feel like you should be grateful to work for me. And it's like, really? And it's like I'm working for you. Like, and you should be grateful that I work for you. That's that, you know what I mean? Like, I'm
Mhm.
working for you as an employee and not the other way around.
Yeah.
A good leader will always be able to tell you that and say, I'm working for my employees. I want to make sure they have everything they need to succeed. And you have some property, and now because of the obvious differences, I can walk into a restaurant and pinpoint those problems within 15 minutes just because you know how the chef carry himself. You know if he's present. When you talk to the cooks, they just either talk to you or they just don't. You understand the atmosphere from the get-go. So, but there's one thing I've done successfully in my interviews is I usually do a pre-screening. When I talk to people, I say, "Are you able to come on property?" There's a few things that I do to see the level of interest and the level of commitment of someone that's going to come interview with me. The first one is I'm going to say, "Can you come today?" And then they say, well, today I don't know. I say, why are you looking for a job? Because if you're looking for a job, I need someone right now. So I need to know if you can come today. Now, that doesn't mean it's a deal breaker, but it just
Yeah.
means is if someone say, absolutely, I can make it today. I already know the attitude of the person I'm going to have in front of me. If someone say, I'm sorry, I have to pick up my kids and, but I can come first thing tomorrow morning, that's good enough. I just want to be able to establish and assess the answer. If someone say, I say, well, I'm off next week on Tuesday. And it's like, okay, That's fine. Let's do Tuesday. But I don't necessarily get already that level of commitment from I. You apply for a job means you're looking for a job, and I
Right.
need someone. Therefore, I need you to show up. So that's one thing that I do without feeling too pushy. And then the second thing that I do is I said, hey, we're gonna meet tomorrow or we're gonna meet tonight, and it said, I invite you to open our website and kind of looking what we're all about. And so during the interview, I'm going to say, I say, so what is it that you've learned on our website? And what is it that you actually was able to find out? Because I'd like to get some question from you. What sparks you to apply here? And what was the interest when you were navigating our website? And then suddenly it's like, well, I didn't have the time to navigate the website. And they say, oh, that's very unfortunate. And so again, for me, that's a deal breaker. Is like, are you really interested? Are you invested? Most good people that wants a job in the right place, not only they're going to be showing up that day, 9 times out of 10 they will show up that day, and second, you don't even need to ask them to watch the website. They already did it before the pre-screening. And so once you have that, you've already kind of filtered so much by
Yeah.
knowing by the time you talk to that person in front of you, 99% of the time, you know you're going to hire them because they've already showed the attitude, the interest, and the commitment towards what you're doing. Now you just need to make sure that they belong in the kitchen and you teach them. But if you surround yourself in this kitchen with only people that came in that way, then you already have like-minded people in this kitchen, which is the best gift you can get.
Those are fantastic techniques. I'm going to put that to use immediately.
Mhm.
Well, so from the other side, I won't frame this as hypothetical because I'm actually asking you for advice on my own career. So, my level of owning and operating 3 restaurants, I have a fantastic chef in place in each restaurant who's in charge of the kitchen. And so I'm continually trying to find the balance between supporting them, being present for the cooks when I need to, but not stepping on the chef's toes. And so, what do you think that the chefs and the GMs at these restaurants, expect from me other than to, make sure paychecks don't bounce and the lights don't go off? What do you think that they look for me in terms of leadership and mentorship? Because I think they love being in charge of their own restaurant, their own department, but I still, have to at the very least sign the paychecks and pay the bills.
I think I mean I think I would start to understand and knowing exactly where they are in their own journey.
Hmm.
It's like, of course, we all, and I've never had the chance of owning a restaurant, so I'm just speaking out of concept and how I would approach it. But I think uh, Brendan at 25 years old wanted very different things than Brendan at 35 and Brendan at 45. So all those things, we all moving through our journey wanted different things and have different priority. And I think it is our job, if we are the boss or we are the owner, to know those things by heart, and is to do some periodic check-ins, and maybe it's 2 times a year when there is a, hey, I'm going to invite you to the restaurant and let's go have a meal, and then just
Yeah.
have a conversation that are not at work. They're just very casual. And it's just like, hey, I don't know, I'm going to use the word John and say, John, and say, where you are in your journey? You've been here with me for 3 years. You're doing a great job. Sure, I would want to keep you for the next 15, but I also want to be sensitive to your own journey. What are you aspiring to? Well, you know what? I really want to be an owner of my own restaurant. And I say, oh, wow, that's great. And I say, so what do you think I can help you with this? What is it that you think you're missing in order to be a restaurant owner someday? And how much time are you giving yourself? Are you giving yourself 5 years, 10 years? And
Mhm.
so you spark those conversation, and now you're actually building a very, very new relationship with that person, because now anytime you see them at work and it's like, hey, let's have a chat. We were talking about being an ownership. I said the decision you made on doing this initiative was maybe a 2 weeks turnaround on your marketing. I said that might be poorly executed. I said this is why I'm doing what I do now, because you have established this rapport and you have established this understanding that you're helping him reaching his dream. Now you actually will be listening a lot more to the feedback rather than coming unsolicited. So it's just you establish this, and like I said, that's the way I would start for just understanding. If you have those 3 restaurant, was I would say an exec chef and then a GM of restaurant is having very different rapport with those 6 people in order to help them achieve their journey. And then once you do that, I don't know. It just feels amazing when you've done someone and the day they quit and they want to move on. Sure, it's a little bit bittersweet because now you're left without a chef, but you're so proud of where they headed, then you actually forget about the fact that you have a hole on your payroll. You're just like so
Yeah.
thrilled about this person achieving this and you were part of their journey. And they will thank you for it for years to come.
Nice, nice. Well, I'm thinking about hotel settings, and I've been in a few where there's someone who is extremely talented. It might not even be in the kitchen. It might be it might be a completely different department. But in your consulting, when you're working with someone like that, it's an extremely talented sous chef, but there's no upward mobility for him at the moment. The restaurant and the hotel don't want him to leave or her to leave, and you are coaching that person. How do you have the conversation with them that, not only like talent alone is not enough. You're going to need to develop these other things. How do you start that conversation? Because that can be a difficult thing for a hotshot sous chef to hear.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, if we're talking about a chef that is good, but at the same time knows how good he is, those
Yeah.
conversations can be complicated. But I think it's important to make them realize the humility that comes with the progressive role. It's like, and you just, like I said, you don't necessarily tackle the feedback yet because you're obviously facing someone with a high level of ego, level of pride, and
Hmm.
you can be somewhat arrogant. And I'm guilty as charged. I used to be one of them. So it's like
Same here.
I'm talking to myself. So it is just kind of understanding. I say, okay, well, what is it that you're doing right, and what do you think you need to improve? And if the answer is, I was like, I don't need to improve anything. I'm pretty good at what I'm doing. And I say, but if you're good at what you're doing, does that mean that you are overqualified for what you're doing now? Does that mean that you've reached the potential? It's okay to be great at what you're doing, but I say, but is it the top of the potential? Is it that you have achieved everything? And then they say, oh no, 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 I want to be more. And they say, okay, well, what is more? And it's like, and so that after I say, I want to be a chef de cuisine. And they say, okay, well, what do you think a chef de cuisine is? And so you kind of under teaching them, educating them into a world they think they know, but you make them realize they don't. And then once they realize, say, "Oh wow, I realize that I don't really know any of this." And you humble them by making them answering their own question and realizing someone that has a lot of ego, a lot of pride, and a lot of knowledge or think they know it all. When you ask them questions, they don't have answers. If you ask them
Hmm.
5 questions in a row, they don't have answers. There's something that click inside that just said, oh, I actually don't know that much. They won't say it out loud, but you can
Hmm.
tell the wheels is turning. And then you just kind of say, are you interested to hear what it takes in order to get there? I have been there. I have experienced it. Are you interested to do that? You don't necessarily, again, offer it unsolicited. You ask them, are you interested to know? Is it something you're interested to find out? And I say, oh, yeah, I would love to find out. And now you get the engagement. Once you get someone at that level that's been humbled first, then the engagement, then after that, you can do whatever you want with it because now you've built that rapport. Then whatever you say is gold for them.
Thank you. This is fantastic information. I might even patch you in on some of these one-on-one conversations I have with chefs and GMs. Like, this
Of
is
course.
solid gold. Thank you. Well, last question. So, in writing the book Relentless Growth, first of all, did the title come first? Did the title come last? And then Relentless Growth, is that a 5-year plan, a 10-year plan, or is that a daily mindset?
So to answer your first question, when I hired my book coach, we went into a process called a book proposal, like you would do to find a literary agent. And
Mhm.
this book proposal took me 6 months to do. So, I've announced everyone I'm writing a book, and then for
Yeah.
6 months, everyone I say, "So where are you at in the book?" I say, "I haven't even started yet," and so I'm still working. So for like I say, I never knew the process. It was learning curve for me. But for 6 months, I put a lot of energy into a book proposal, which ended up becoming about 60 pages, that book proposal. And the first exercise of that book, actually the second, the first one is the question is, why do you think you're the right person to write this book? And you're just like, man, what does that mean? And then you kind of write out. The second question is say, write 10 titles of what your book could be. And it's like my book coach told me, say it's very early on in the process, but I said it's been proven that most author, when they're writing their 10 titles at the very early process before the book is even a book, they realize that most of the time, if not all of the time, you will end up using one of those 10 titles.
Uh-huh.
And so because you don't know, it's so raw and you don't know. And so I had put that there. So I had 10 titles, some that were in French, some that were in English. Like I was just like, I don't even know when 10 title. I think I came up with eight. I just
Uh-huh.
was merely just doing it because I was asked to do it, but I had no inspiration whatsoever. But Relentless Growth was actually one of those 10s, one of those eight.
Nice.
So that's how I came up to be very early on. And as you were writing the book, it became more apparent that that was the right title for the book. And so you just kind of validating and confirm it as you're writing the process. And then the second question you ask, which was, can you remind me that second question?
Sure. Is the relentless growth mindset one of a
Yes.
5 or 10 year plan, or is it a daily mindset?
No, the idea is for that relentless growth. The relentless could be I would say confused with the fact that it has to go fast and you have to do this and it has to be intense. And the relentless for me is more about the never ending process. So it is a daily mindset. Is it adopting the growth mindset? Is it being able to navigate through life and not only professional, is navigate through life and realizing that, oh, I don't know this. And instead of just saying I don't know this and move on from it, is like, okay, let me just kind of look into this. Why do I not know this? Is it something I'm supposed to know? Is it something I'm expected to know? And it comes with the title, it comes with your age, it comes with your own desire of wanting to know. And it can be applicable not only in your career, but like for example, I have two little girls, 4.5 and 1.5 year old. You don't know how to be a father until you're one. And so you kind of going through this process. You don't know how to be married to someone until you're married. And so all those little things that you kind of navigating is just like, okay, I don't see it. It's not obvious to me, but let's say my wife said, I need you to focus on this. It's important for me to focus on this. And as a father, I think that's something you should know. And then you're just like, okay, well, let me look into this. And just having the um, humility to look into it in a way that you generally want to progress. And don't get me wrong, it's not easy. There's sometimes your identity gets in the way, or you think you know better gets in the way, or you just the fact that it's like, why am I being schooled for something so simple? So your ego gets in the way, your persona gets in the way, but you've got to be able to find the reason of that growth mindset and seeing those adversities as opportunities, those challenge as just another opportunity. If you go into some what we would call failures, or you go into something you just don't know, and sometimes just approaching it from a open-minded will help you kind of navigating. So definitely a daily mindset for you to adopt that, and hopefully the daily mindset will teach you everything you need to know in order for you to achieve professional fulfillment.
It's a fantastic premise. It's a fantastic title. It does bring up one more question though I have
Yeah, please.
about the writing process, and I compare it to teaching a cook how to make an aioli. And I know I've come to learn that I understand. I learn how much I understand about a process or a recipe or a system or a technique when I'm training someone else to do it. If I can explain as I'm drizzling in the oil why the aioli and why the egg yolk and the oil emulsify around each other as it's happening, then I know how much I do or don't know about that particular technique or recipe. So in the process of writing this book, I imagine there were eureka moments of you saying, "Oh my gosh." I forgot that I ever even learned that, or I didn't even know that I knew that much about it. What were a couple of those for you that were like these crazy processes of self discovery and writing?
I think one of the biggest one during my process of writing was I read a lot of self-help book, and so
Hmm.
it helped me understanding what I like about them, and also what I when I finish the book and say, oh, I say I love the content, but I did not necessarily extract as much as I thought I would, and so you kind of assessing this actual experience, and you kind of just saying, wow, I didn't find the book as relatable as I thought it would be. It doesn't apply to me. Or, yeah, I can extract those three things here, but I say, man, this is an entire book. I can only extract three things. So you're kind of going into this. So the first process is I do think in order to be a decent writer, you need to also read books. You cannot just becoming a decent writer without
Yeah.
necessarily understanding what's out there. Now, the other process is that I found for me was actually very therapeutic. I grew up in an environment in my family when we don't necessarily open up about our feelings. We don't necessarily talk about those things. And then I went directly into chef's life when you definitely don't talk about your feelings. And then you being asked to this, if you have a problem, go in the walk-in to cry for 5 minutes and come back.
Yeah.
So my entire career and my entire life was similarly the same thing, which was keep your feelings to yourself, shut the F up, and then just move on. And
Mhm.
uh, and so I found this book as I was writing it and trying to make it as relatable as possible to show people that I am not a different person than the reader that's reading this book. I wanted to write a book for me, knowing that I would want to read it. And so I just say, if I was a 20-year-old Franck reading this book, why would I want to extract from this book? And relatability was a huge component of that. In order to do that, I needed to go into deep into my experiences and being able to call me out if I needed to call me out on this book and showing some mistakes because I don't want this book to only be about me exceeding expectation all the time. At some point, I have an entire chapter about failure. I cannot go into the thing and tell you conceptually this is what you need to do without me opening up about some of my biggest failure. And I found this. So I found this very therapeutic for me to go through this process and opening up. I remember like when I talk about joining apprenticeship with a now today is a two Michelin star rated restaurant in France. When I went through the process, because I needed to write the book, it made me going back to that moment, and those feelings just kind of came out. And I remember being scared. I remember having my hands sweaty. When if you were to ask me that same story in a restaurant setting, talking about it, I would have omitted all those things because I didn't need to remember them. But writing them and being so specific made me actually going into those feelings and make me realizing that it was actually very therapeutic. And once I started writing those stories, I was not afraid of what came out on paper. And I was rereading and I just say, man, I'm having goosebumps reading it. So it means it must work. So I decided to apply the same thing throughout all the stories afterwards.
Thank you. Thank you for describing it. And I've had goosebumps several times during our conversation because this is exactly the type of things that I want my sous chefs, my managers, and especially all my young cooks to learn and hear. This is absolutely essential to, bettering our profession. So again, congratulations on the book. Tell
Thank
us
you.
where can our listeners find the book? Where can they find you on the socials?
Yeah, so my book will be officially out on October 14 next month in about 3 weeks from now. Right now, you can pre-order the book on my website, cheffranck.com, Franck CK. So cheffranck.com, you can go pre-order the book directly. And the reason why I've decided to do it this way is I've created a page on my book on the second page when you can actually order the book with the signature of the author on it, but you also can gift my book to someone. So if you are filling up the form online, you can say, for example, Brendan, from Brendan to whoever with the signature, and I can sending it to you directly from my house, and then you can gift it to someone. So I wanted this book to be more than just the author giving that to anyone. I just want to make sure that I found myself many years during Christmas time when I want to offer a gift to my cooks and my team. I'm going to order a few years ago, I bought Unreasonable Hospitality to my
Mhm.
entire chef team because and some might not read it, but I felt like it was a compelling gift, and so I just said, you know what, some people is going to want to might offer it to someone. Therefore, I wanted to give that chance to do that. So you can find that on my website, cheffranck.com. Pre-order the book. It will come out on October 14. Amazon and Barnes and Nobles and Target and everywhere you can find. And social media, I have a significant presence on LinkedIn and Instagram. That will be the two that I've been focusing on recently to kind of establish a social media presence.
Wonderful. Well, thanks so much for joining me today. It's been a pleasure to catch up, and yeah, best
Thanks,
of luck. And
Brandon.
I hope you
Equally.
I hope you enjoy the book launch, and I hope you get some rest, and then get to work on the next one.
Thank you.
So that was my interview with Franck Desplechin. It really did give me goosebumps because we talk about the stuff that I think about and want to improve in the restaurant industry all the time. So hopefully y'all can find your way to his book, Relentless Growth. While you're here, click the drop down, give us 5 stars. That's the way that this podcast spreads and gets recommended to other people on Spotify, on iHeartRadio, and on Apple. Stay humble, stay hungry. Thanks, y'all.